Bishop Lavis, a neighborhood in Cape Town, is where the story of Peter Jaggers begins. A story of a child dragged into the world of crime under the shadow of poverty and violence. Born in the late 1980s, Jaggers was a child from a family struggling with poverty. His childhood reflected the systemic inequality and lack of opportunities that defined the lives of many in Bishop Lavis. His parents, although hardworking, were unable to provide the stability that might have kept him from the streets. The gang leaders in his neighborhood, with their flashy cars, gold chains, and the aura of power, caught his attention at an early age. Instead of attending school, Jaggers spent his time on the streets, quickly falling under the influence of the gangs. Life in Bishop Lavis during Jaggers' youth was marked by rampant unemployment, a failing education system, and minimal intervention from government authorities. For many children in the area, the gangs offered not only financial opportunities but also a sense of belonging and protection. These conditions created a cycle of poverty and crime that was difficult to break. For a young Peter Jaggers, this world seemed like a chance to escape the struggles of his family life. Jaggers' fascination with the criminal world began in much the same way as many young people in his neighborhood: small thefts, neighborhood fights, and a life shaped by the unwritten rules of the streets. Cape Town's gang culture was deeply entrenched, with neighborhoods divided into territories controlled by rival factions. For children like Jaggers, there seemed to be little choice. The gang's influence extended to almost every aspect of life in Bishop Lavis. However, what set Jaggers apart from many others was his intelligence and natural charisma. Even as a teenager, he displayed a strategic mind and an ability to lead others. These qualities did not go unnoticed by the local gang leaders. By the time he was in his early 20s, he joined one of Cape Town's largest gangs, the Terrible Josters. This gang was notorious not just for its criminal activities, such as drug trafficking, arms smuggling, and money laundering, but also for its influence in the community. The Terrible Josters were more than just a gang. They were a powerful organization with connections that spanned across continents. Jaggers quickly rose through the ranks of the gang, standing out for his ability to plan complex operations and his ruthless approach to anyone who stood in his way. He orchestrated large-scale drug deals, expanded the gang's territory, and managed to outmaneuver rival factions. Under his leadership, the gang became one of Cape Town's most powerful criminal organizations. Despite his violent methods, Jaggers cultivated an image as a Robin Hood figure in his neighborhood. He was known to provide financial help to local youth, support struggling families, and even fund community events. Many residents of Bishop Lavis saw him as a protector, someone who stood up against the system that had failed them. But this benevolent image was covering the dark realities of organized crime. The same community he seemed to protect was often caught in the crossfire of gang wars, and the drugs his organization distributed wreaked havoc on countless lives. Jaggers' rise to power didn't just put him at odds with rival gangs in Cape Town. His growing influence and the Terrible Josters' increasing control of the drug trade also attracted the attention of international criminal organizations. These organizations, particularly the Colombian cartels, saw South Africa as a critical hub in their global operations. In early 2024, a shipment of cocaine worth 1 billion rand, approximately $53 million, disappeared from the Cape Town port. This shipment belonged to a Colombian drug cartel, which claimed that Jaggers was behind the loss. For the cartels, this was not just about the financial loss. It was a direct challenge to their authority. Jaggers denied any involvement, but in the criminal world, perception is reality. The cartel was determined to hold him accountable, not just to recover their loss, but to send a message to anyone who might consider crossing them. The Colombian cartel's reputation for brutality was well known. They dominated the drug trade with fear and violence, and their methods were as much about psychological warfare as they were about physical intimidation. For Jaggers, this marked the beginning of a deadly conflict. On June 30th, 2024, Peter Jaggers and his associate William Peterson traveled to the Gauteng region of Johannesburg for a business meeting. The goal of this meeting was to resolve the dispute with the cartel. The meeting took place at Emperor's Palace Hotel, a venue known for hosting high-stakes negotiations. However, this was no ordinary dispute. The The cartel had no intention of negotiating. After the meeting on July 3rd, Jaggers and Peterson were ambushed while leaving the hotel. The cartel's death squad, trained in covert operations, kidnapped them along with their vehicle. It was a meticulously planned operation. Jaggers and Peterson were taken to an unknown location, marking the beginning of a horrific ordeal. The cartel sent voice messages to their families, demanding a ransom and asserting their authority. 50 million rand ransom or we will harm your family members. We are the Colombian Cartel, and we are not joking. Jaggers was subjected to horrific torture. The cartel used cruel and calculated methods to punish him and send a message to their enemies. Over several days, Jaggers endured broken bones, deep cuts, and relentless suffering. Peterson was forced to watch, a psychological tactic designed to break both men. The cartel's actions were not just about vengeance. They were a statement of power. Jaggers' family, desperate for help, contacted the Bishop Lavis police station on July 5, 2024. However, the resources required to confront an international cartel were beyond what local authorities could handle. South Africa's Hawks, the organized crime unit, became involved, but the cartel's international connections made the situation even more complicated. Months passed with no progress. The cartel's ransom demand of 50 million rand was far beyond what Jaggers' family could afford. The cartel, however, was not interested in negotiation. It was about demonstrating their reach and influence. On October 11, 2024, the bodies of Peter Jaggers and William Peterson were discovered on the banks of the Vale River in the Free State region. Both men had been bound and showed signs of severe torture. Jaggers' face was unrecognizable, and his body bore deep cuts, a chilling testament to the suffering he endured. Peterson's body also bore similar signs of brutality. The cartel's message was clear: no one can challenge the Colombian cartel. Jaggers' death sent shockwaves through South Africa. For some, it was the inevitable outcome of a life steeped in crime. For others, it was a tragic loss of a figure who, despite his flaws, had tried to give back to his community. The media painted a picture of a man torn between two worlds, a ruthless gang leader and a benefactor for the poor. Social media was equally divided. Justice was served. Those who believed Jaggers deserved this end pointed to the damage he had caused to society through his criminal career. A tragic end. Those who remembered his contributions to the community saw his death as a loss. Jaggers' life and death are a stark reminder of the brutal nature of the criminal world. His rise to power, while impressive, ultimately led to his downfall. This documentary sheds light on the destructive impact of organized crime, not just on individuals but on entire communities. The story of Peter Jaggers illustrates that in the world of crime, there are no winners, only victims.